Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing Crack the Sky by Crack the Sky.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
If you didn't guess it already, this is a debut album, a self-titled debut album by the very successful band Crack the Sky, and here are some of my favorite bits from this album.
I'll go down yelling or quiet if you like. Sorry, Lord, that I doubted you. Oh, babe, you really came through, and I thank you. Robots running, boy and a girl, baby in aluminum.
So much like Ambrosia's first self-titled album, we are again looking at a band that started off with a very progressive album but then would go on to create some very much less progressive music and find most success over there. But unlike Ambrosia, I would have to say that Crack the Sky features a very different sound when it comes to prog in its first album. Most of the songs on here are better radio friendly, and honestly I would say that they're mostly hard rock verging sometimes on prog. Most songs on here follow a pretty basic structure, and although doing that I find them to be kinda catchy, so that's really nice. And as I said, between sections we sometimes get some glimpses of prog, and honestly there's three exceptions to that, of three songs which are really proggy in nature, and those being Sea Epic, Ice and Sleep. Those ones are better representing of progressive music. Now this album is actually pretty freaking great. I think it's really good and it serves a really important purpose, and that might be getting into prog in the first place. If you or anyone you know are trying to get into prog but you're really hard on like getting, into it because everything is too experimental, too unlike anything that you really like, I think this album is a great starting point because a lot of it is contemporary and accessible, but at the same time we do get some glimpses of prog on here which honestly can be enjoyed by a lot of people in my opinion. So yes, it might not be a quintessential prog album, but everyone has to start somewhere. Now before I go on to talking about the music itself, I have to touch on something that was really odd in this album to me, and it has to do with how most endings to songs on here are constructed. You see, most songs, most of all music, have generally two ways of ending a song off. One is, going into some sort of crescendo, everything is rising up before hitting that last note and ending, and there's of course the simple fade out when the music just fades out into oblivion. But then you have the two ways that Crack the Sky end their songs, and honestly both of them are really kind of weird. The first one is transitioning seamlessly into the next song, and that's pretty acceptable. We see it a lot in concept albums in prog, but the thing that they really do odd on here is that they cut the song about 10 seconds after where you'd expect, so you're getting this really seamless transition into something that you can tell is different, is new, but you're still in the last song you were listening to, and that goes on for a good few seconds until it actually cuts to the next song. So that's kind of odd. But the second way that they end songs on here is basically in sheer unexpectedness. So you're going on and you don't really know when the song is gonna end. I kind of knew because I saw the playhead, but if you don't know, you're just not gonna know where a song is supposed to end when suddenly it just goes, starts something, and then just suddenly abruptly stops. That's really odd, and I don't really get why they're doing it. It's definitely unique, but I don't think that's the kind of uniqueness you're really aiming for with your music. And the one place we do get to see a proper song ending with a fade out is the last track, and honestly, I hate it when an album, ends off with a fade. That's like the lamest way of doing it, so they honestly could have chose any other track on here and had it end with a fade off, and I was like, yeah, okay, it's pretty fine. But ending the last track on here just feels kind of cheap. But anyway, this album really has some nice songs on here, some real bangers if I had to say. It's very much, eclectic in some way, as well as being, of course, upbeat, and I really like that. A song like Robots for Ronnie is a really nice track, which really reminded me of Supertramp's Rudy. If you like that song, you're probably gonna like this one as well. But my personal favorite track from this album has to be the epic Sea Epic. Yes, it's called Sea Epic, and it's really good. It lingers on some of that early Genesis sound, and it's very theatrical in nature, and I really like that, and I would have loved hearing an entire album with that sound from Crack the Skye, but as I see it, Crack the Skye aren't probably coming back to their prog roots anytime soon, so I guess this is what we get from them. I wasn't honestly too impressed by the other two mainly progressive songs on here, being Ice and Sleep. I think they were kind of nice, they just didn't really, hit my own favorites when it comes to what I like about my progressive music. You know what they say, they're not my cup of prog. But I'll repeat, this is pretty much a great album. It's really good if you're looking for something which isn't too heavily progressive and you just kind of want to enjoy it but still don't want to listen to anything too contemporary. This album is definitely where you should go. And I personally really like this album, but I think this is a case where I have to inject some objectivity into it and saying that this isn't really progressive that much in most places, so I will have to lower its rating according to that, but know that I really like this one. So most of the times when I talk about covers on this series, I talk about the colors found on them. And that might seem like a shallow way of dissecting a cover, why are you talking about the colors? But honestly, I find that the colors is one of the more important aspects of any cover, as well as any visual art. And the colors on here, they're really great. I can already see how this video will get higher than average rates of views just because the thumbnail is gonna be so vibrant, because I always use colors from the covers in creating my thumbnails. I really like how they use negative space on here, so everything is mostly black, and then you have the sunset or the sunrise, depends on what you're thinking about it. And the logo of Crack the Skye is also really good, and I really like it. I think it really has the message, instrued into it. Is instrued even a word? I don't know what it is, but it felt right. I really like this logo. I think it really does a great job, and I'm really happy to see that they're still using that same logo from the beginning up until this day. And I'll have to admit, the imagery on this cover is on the cusp of uneventful to mesmerizing in some way, and I honestly don't know where to place myself, but I will say that it's definitely a memorable cover, but for different reasons than most ones we see on here. So seeing as this album isn't really prog, I would not give it a high rating as I probably want to, but it still gets a very much respectable 8 out of 10. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to Phantasmagoria by Curved Air. I of course want to thank my lovely supporter over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Walnum, you are the best. And if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.